The US-Canada relationship has changed dramatically. What was once a partnership defined by quiet cooperation and mutual benefit has now evolved into a complex rivalry, reshaping the very foundation of North American trade. For decades, Canada was the quiet partner, often content to follow America's lead and benefit from its neighbors' economic might. Now it's a strategic competitor, challenging America's dominance in North American trade with bold new strategies and investments. This isn't a minor dispute or a passing disagreement. It's a seismic shift with global consequences, sending shockwaves through international markets and forcing businesses to rethink their supply chains. The US is no longer the continent's undisputed leader. Its position at the top is being openly contested for the first time in generations. The challenge comes from its closest ally, Canada, a nation once seen as America's junior partner, now stepping confidently onto the world stage. It started with US overreach, protectionist policies and trade barriers, but Canada responded with bold action and a clear vision for the future. Canada is investing billions to transform its ports, building state-of-the-art infrastructure, and creating new trade routes that bypass the US entirely. The goal is ambitious: to make Canada the central hub for trade between Europe, Asia, and North America, connecting continents and driving global commerce. Global shipping giants are choosing Canadian ports for their efficiency, reliability, and forward-thinking approach to international logistics. The ripple effects are shaking the American economy, leaving US workers and businesses facing uncertainty and new competition. This is about more than just goods and services. It's about who sets the rules for global trade in the 21st century and who will shape the future of economic power. As Washington turns inward, Canada steps up, signing new deals, forging new alliances, and positioning itself as a leader in the new global order. We'll explore how this dramatic shift happened, what it means for American workers and families, and why it marks a historic turning point for the continent. The US is learning a hard lesson. In a globalized world, dominance is never guaranteed, and the balance of power can shift overnight. Welcome to the new North American trade order, a landscape defined by competition, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of global influence. The turning point? It arrived quietly, but its impact would echo for years to come. The Trump administration's North American Port Security Initiative was unveiled with bold ambitions. The plan called for integrating US and Canadian port operations, even going so far as to propose placing US agents directly inside Canadian ports, an unprecedented move. Ottawa saw this not as cooperation but as a direct threat to Canadian sovereignty, a power grab disguised as partnership, raising alarm bells at every level of government. Canada's response was swift, decisive, and united. A firm no echoed from Parliament to the ports. This was a new, assertive Canada, unwilling to play the role of junior partner or compromise its independence. The US had misjudged its neighbors' resolve, exposing a deep fracture in the relationship and igniting a wave of national pride. For Canada, controlling its own gateways wasn't just policy, it was a matter of national identity and pride. The proposal united Canadians from coast to coast against what they saw as American overreach. Trust, once strong, was suddenly broken. In that moment, Canada realized it needed true economic independence from the US, not just in words, but in action. The rejection wasn't the end of the story, it was the spark that ignited a bold new Canadian strategy for the future. Canada set out to build an independent trade network, forging new partnerships and challenging America's central role in North American commerce. The stage was set for a new era in North American trade, one where Canada would chart its own course, on its own terms. Canada didn't just protest, it acted. The government launched a near trillion-dollar project to modernize its ports. 3 hubs were targeted: Vancouver, Montreal, and Churchill. Vancouver became a superport, doubling capacity and outpacing US West Coast rivals. Montreal was transformed into a premier gateway for European trade, with deeper channels and advanced automation. Its location offered the shortest route between Europe and North America's industrial heartland. Churchill, once dormant, was revived as Arctic ice melted, opening a new, shorter route to Europe. Billions went into deep-water upgrades and rail links. The Arctic Bridge from Churchill to Europe became a game-changer for shipping resources. Canada's ports now connect directly to Asia and Europe, bypassing the US. This bold transformation put Canada at the forefront of new global trade routes. The world's shipping map was being redrawn. Canada was betting big and winning. Canada's port investments redrew the map of global trade. The goal: create high-capacity corridors connecting Asia, Europe, and North America without touching U.S. soil. The Pacific Corridor, anchored by Vancouver, became the new gateway for Asian goods. Shipping giants like Samsung and Toyota rerouted cargo to Canada, bypassing congested U.S. ports. Trains from Vancouver reached Chicago faster and cheaper than from Los Angeles. On the Atlantic, Montreal became the preferred entry for European goods, thanks to its modernized seaway and efficient logistics. European automakers shipped through Montreal, cutting costs and transit times. The Arctic Bridge from Churchill opened a direct, cost-effective route for Canadian resources to Europe. It also enabled LNG exports to a Europe eager to diversify energy sources. Canada's new corridors offered stability and efficiency the U.S. couldn't match. Global trade was flowing north, America was being bypassed. As Canadian ports boomed, U.S. ports declined. Cargo volumes dropped sharply in Los Angeles, Seattle, and Savannah. Empty docks and idle cranes became the new normal. Fewer ships meant higher fees and deteriorating service, making U.S. ports even less competitive. Labor disputes and underinvestment plagued American ports, while Canada surged ahead with automation and expansion. Slow, outdated U.S. infrastructure added days and costs to supply chains. The contrast with Canada's seamless operations was stark. The port sector shrank, threatening millions of American jobs. Trucking, warehousing, and logistics firms suffered as cargo flowed north. The decline was a quiet crisis, eroding America's economic foundation. The U.S. was no longer the default gateway for global trade. The consequences rippled through the economy. America's trade dominance was slipping away. America's own trade policies, designed to protect its industries, ironically accelerated its economic decline. Instead of strengthening the nation's position, these policies set off a chain reaction that weakened its global standing. Tariffs meant to shield U.S. industries from foreign competition ended up backfiring. They made the market more volatile and drove up costs for American manufacturers and consumers alike, making everyday goods more expensive. In response, allies like Canada and the European Union didn't just wait for things to improve. They actively sought out new markets, building alternative supply chains that completely bypassed the U.S., reducing their dependence on American ports. Tariffs on steel and aluminum hit friends as well as rivals, pushing Canada to strengthen ties with Asia and Europe. Canadian exporters quickly adapted, finding eager trading partners overseas. Canada's investment in new, modern port facilities made it easy to export resources globally. By avoiding U.S. tariffs and the uncertainty they brought, Canada positioned itself as a reliable gateway for international trade. The constant threat of new tariffs from the U.S. created instability and unpredictability. Businesses, always seeking stability, preferred Canada's more predictable and transparent system, which allowed for better long-term planning. Global companies began to see U.S. ports as risky and unreliable. In contrast, Canada emerged as the safer, more attractive bet for international shipping and investment. While the U.S. built walls with tariffs, Canada built bridges, signing major free trade deals with Europe and Asia. These agreements opened up new opportunities and markets for Canadian businesses. With expanded port capacity and efficient logistics, Canada quickly became a global trade hub, attracting more ships and business than ever before. U.S. tariffs, intended as a show of economic strength, instead signaled unreliability and unpredictability to the world's trading partners. The result was clear: business, investment, and global influence steadily shifted northward, boosting Canada's economy and reputation. America's own policies handed Canada a golden opportunity. The world took notice, and Canada seized its moment on the global stage. As the U.S. turned inward, allies looked to Canada for leadership. Europe, frustrated with U.S. unpredictability, praised Canada's commitment to free trade. Germany signed a landmark LNG deal with Canada, reducing reliance on Russia. Canada's new export terminals and energy corridors made it possible. The U.S. was sidelined by slow regulation and political instability. In critical minerals, European automakers signed long-term contracts with Canadian miners. Canada's stable politics and high environmental standards made it the ideal partner. The government promoted mine-to-market supply chains, shipping directly to Europe. Multinational companies followed, investing in Canadian manufacturing for access to both Europe and Asia. The global economic map was being redrawn. Canada was at the center of new alliances. The U.S. could no longer take its allies for granted. Reliability was the new currency of global trade. North America has reached a turning point. U.S. economic leadership is no longer unchallenged. Canada is now a formidable rival. This isn't just about lost cargo, it's a loss of influence and a reordering of global trade. American consumers are paying more as goods detour through Canada. U.S. logistics and shipping firms are losing market share. Jobs that once supported American ports are moving north. Canada's boom is America's loss. The irony, America first, led to America being bypassed. Global partners now see Canada as the stable, reliable choice. This is a fundamental realignment, not a temporary shift. The U.S. is now one of two competing powers in North America. The new trade order is shaped by Canadian ambition, not American dominance. The world is watching and adapting. Welcome to the new era of North American trade.